We helped a B2B SaaS company 5X their sales pipeline from Google Ads while reducing their budget by 75%. In this video, I'm gonna walk you through step by step how we did it so you can do the same. Before working with us, this SaaS company was spending $20,000 on Google Ads and just averaging 2 to 3 qualified demos a month. And then 4 months later, after working with us, they booked 38 qualified demos from Google Ads with just $5K in spend. And so here, I'm gonna walk you through step by step how we did it and the exact steps we took to get them there. So for some background, this company was a SaaS company in the financial services space. They were a Series A company at the time, raising their Series B, and they were deeply frustrated with their Google Ads agency and their strategy. They had worked with 2 agencies already, and in both attempts, they saw very few results. They were generating only 2 to 3 qualified demos off of $20,000 in ad spend, which is pretty low, especially for the price point this company was charging their product at. And one of the biggest frustrations they had is almost all of the conversions they were getting were spam or bots. They were random personal email addresses. They never were real people. And they were experiencing a ton of click fraud. Almost 80% of their clicks were reported as click fraud. Their previous agency was only measuring clicks, impressions, and form submissions, but they were never looking at the quality of those leads and are they the right people and are they actually progressing to sales demos and entering their sales pipeline. And truthfully, after working with when we had originally talked to them, after working with 2 agencies and having very mixed results, they were questioning if Google Ads was even the right channel for them to grow. And so the first thing we did for them is we shifted their focus from the quantity of leads to quality. So in the past, they had just been generating a ton of conversions, but they were all the wrong people. They were, spam, unqualified leads. They were getting a decent amount of volume, but none of it was converting into sales opportunities. So the first thing we did is we set up the reporting in HubSpot to make sure that we could clearly see of the keywords we were bidding on, not only how many conversions we were getting by keyword, but who are they? What's their job title? What companies are they from? Did they schedule demos with their sales team and did they enter the sales pipeline and become customers? And without that visibility, it's so hard to optimize your account for quality. So what they were doing previously is just looking only in the Google Ads account where you can see the number of conversions, but you can't see who is the person converting. And that data is super misleading because a keyword can get a lot of conversions, but if it's generating all the wrong people or it's generating a bunch of spam, it actually isn't a good keyword because it's not bringing you qualified demos. So that was the first shift we made. And what we did is we set up this tracking in HubSpot for them so they could clearly see every lead they generated, what keyword they came from, who was that person, did that person schedule a demo, and did they become a customer? So now that they had this visibility, it was much easier to make the right decisions to improve quality and really understand what keywords are moving the needle for their business. The second thing we did is we replaced their bidding strategy and keyword strategy. So originally what they were doing is they were bidding on low intent keywords and using a broad match type to target those keywords. So low intent keywords are keywords that indicate that someone is not yet ready to purchase a software solution. For example, they were bidding on the keyword 401k. This was a 401k plan provider solution. That's what the company does. And just bidding on 401k does not indicate that someone is looking to purchase software to administer 401ks for their company. So because we can infer that that's low intent, more often than not, those type of keywords do not convert. And that's what we saw with them as well. The second thing is they're using a broad keyword match type. And what that means essentially is just because you're targeting a keyword, it doesn't mean that you actually show up every time that keyword is searched. Based on your match type, it determines how closely you match with the search term. And they were using a broad match type, which is the broadest form of keyword matching. And essentially what that's telling Google is anything that you think relates to this topic of this keyword, let me show up for. So what that does, it means you show up for a host of keywords that a lot of times have nothing to do with your business. So for this client, because they were bidding on match type, they're spending a lot of budget on keywords like Fidelity 401k login, a lot of competitor keywords for big companies like Vanguard. And they were just wasting all this money on people who were never even looking for their software. So what we did is we shifted their focus to high intent keywords, which are keywords that indicate that someone is actively looking to purchase a service or solution. So those include the words software, service, provider, vendor, company. And we focused their bidding on phrase and exact match, which are much tighter keyword match types to make sure that we were actually showing up for those exact search terms. And what happened was we just spent a lot more money and showing up for the right people who are actively in market to purchase their specific solution. The third thing we did is we actively blocked click fraud and junk traffic. So one solution that we did to block the traffic is using a click fraud prevention software like ClickSeize or FraudGuard. And that was helpful. But what we really found out is that the targeting we were using was attracting a lot of junk leads. So there are a few key things that typically attract lower quality leads. The first is broad match targeting. As we mentioned, because broad match targeting is the broadest form of targeting, it reaches all different types of people and is not really targeted to your specific ICP. So what can happen is that can lead to showing in front of a host of different search terms, a host of different audiences, and it can lead to more click fraud creeping in. The second thing is mobile device targeting. So mobile tends to be a source of a lot of click fraud. And what we have found is for people selling to corporate buyers, more often than not, the highest quality leads are converting on desktop. They're typically searching for a business solution to their business at their desk, at work, on their desktop. It's usually not when they're at home on their couch, doom scrolling over the weekend. So what we found is that when you shift your targeting to desktop, you get a lot higher quality leads and a lot of this click fraud goes away. The third is Google search partners targeting. So this company was bidding on Google search partners. There's two networks you can bid on in Google Ads. It's Google Search Network and Google Search Partners. Google Search Network is the typical Google network that you see when you type in a search at Google. Google Search Partners are partner websites at Google that also have search engines that you can bid on. The Google Search Partners network always brings in fraud. I don't know why, but it is always the source of a lot of unqualified leads, a lot of relevant clicks. And so we just turned that off and that made a massive difference. And then lastly, improper location targeting. So this company is primarily selling to companies in the US. We made sure their location targeting was hyper-focused on US and Canada. And what a lot of companies do, which is mistaken, what this company did is they didn't have those location filters on. So what can happen is you can bid in countries that are more prone to click fraud, like India and other countries like that across the world. So while implementing the software was helpful, in truth, just better targeting in these key areas made a big difference in reducing click fraud. The fourth thing we did is really dialed in their audience targeting. So on top of being super tight with your keywords, there are key audience targeting features that we can do that typically lead to higher quality leads and better conversions for B2B SaaS companies. So there's really three main things we did, and this is pretty consistent across a lot of SaaS businesses and B2B businesses in general. The first is including mobile targeting, which I already talked about. But again, we have found is most corporate buyers are searching for these solutions when they're at work, at their desk, on their desktop. So what we did is we shifted a lot of the focus to desktop and much higher quality leads came in. The second thing is only targeting business hours. So Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Again, what we found is because people are searching when they're at work, those times that you're typically at work tend to convert better. So when we looked at the data, and this is pretty consistent across a lot of businesses, 9 to 5, Monday, Friday is when people are converting. It's rarely on the weekend. It's rarely past those hours. So we tightened in the average time so that we were spending all of our money at times where we know people are more likely converting. And lastly, we excluded low income audiences. So Google can actually understand what income bracket the users fall into. And we know typically if you're an executive or a business owner, you usually have a bigger income. So lower incomes usually indicate either smaller businesses or not the right executive level. And so through the data, we were able to see that higher income ranges were also converting higher quality leads. So we tightened that as well. So these are very simple shifts, but what they do is they make sure we are spending all of our budget on the people who are the highest quality leads and most likely to convert. Step 5, building dedicated landing pages for each keyword theme. So one of the challenges this company had is they were bidding on a bunch of different keywords related to 401k services, and they were just driving them to their homepage, the same exact page. And the problem is if people are searching for different services or different ways to describe your company, if you send them to one generic landing page, that page is not going to be relevant to what they were actually searching for. So what you want to do is you want to set up single theme ad groups. And single theme ad groups are essentially grouping all of the very similar themed keywords into one group. And then for those similar keywords, writing very tailored ad copy for them and driving to a very specific landing page based on those keywords. So what that does is it makes the ad a lot more relevant to what they're searching and the landing page experience much more relevant. And so this increases click-through rate, it increases conversion rate. And on top of that, it actually increases your Google Ads quality score, which is a score that Google gives you to rank you around how relevant your ads are to the keywords that you're bidding on. And if your quality score is lower, you're going to have to pay more to show up at the top of these searches. And sometimes Google's just not going to allow you to show up. If your quality score is good, you're going to show up more often. It's going to be cheaper. And it's just a better situation for optimizing your campaigns. So you can see here in the diagram, right? We want to make sure that ad groups have the similar keywords, ads, and landing pages all tailored to those keywords. For all the different keywords that were relevant, we did this. And what happened was, as we predicted, much higher conversion rates on the landing page, much higher click-through rates, overall better relevance, and lower ad clicks. 6, weekly reporting. So obviously setting up this structure from the start really makes a difference when launching your campaigns. But where the real magic happens, in my opinion, is actually in the ongoing optimization. Constantly looking at the data, collecting enough data to understand what's actually driving the right leads, your ideal customer, and qualified pipeline, and making data-driven decisions based on that. And so for this client, we were constantly meeting bi-weekly to assess the data, look at what was driving quality, and make data-driven decisions based on that. And what we typically find is a lot of times companies start by bidding on 20, 30, 50, even 100 keywords at a time. And that can be okay to start because you're trying to test a lot and understand what works. But more often than not, after a couple months of data, almost every time we see that, there's just a handful of keywords that consistently drive qualified sales opportunities. And a lot of times Sometimes it's 2 to 3. Sometimes it's only 1. And so what we want to do is we want to identify that 20% of keywords that is driving 80% of the revenue and cut everything that's not working and really focus on optimizing and bidding more and spending more money on the keywords that are driving the results. And so with this client, we were constantly doing this until we got into a mix where we were consistently driving the results that they were looking for. In just 4 months, we 5x the number of qualified demos they were generating through Google Ads with a quarter of their budget. So that is a massive ROI in terms of reducing budget, but also increasing the results. And it really just came from better targeting. It didn't come from necessarily doing more. It came from doing less, from being more focused, more dialed in, and honest about targeting their ICP. And so in those 4 months, we generated 38 qualified sales opportunities. The budget reduced by 75%. So it was a 12x increase in monthly qualified demos. Now, I know that sounded like a lot. So if you're looking to get similar results, you feel like you could be getting more out of your Google ad spend, or you're not getting the results you're looking for, what we can do is we can actually do a free audit or build you a free strategy if you're not running it yet for your Google ad strategy. And what we'll do is we'll implement a lot of these best practices that we shared, but we'll also make it custom to your situation and show you exactly what you need to do to get results like this. But the key thing to remember is that you don't need to be necessarily be spending more. You need to be spending more efficiently. And if you want to get results similar to this, just reach out, click the link below to my website, schedule time with us for a free audit, and we could dive in and help you get some quick wins to get better results from your Google Ads campaigns.